friends, it's Carly and I'm so happy you're here. Today I want to share with you 3 ways I add color to stamped images when I don't feel like coloring. Now, I love to color, but it takes me a long time and sometimes I don't have time for that, or sometimes I'm just not in the mood for all of that work and I want something that's going to be pretty and colorful but a little bit easier. I'm going to show you 3 different techniques and they produce similar results, but to help you spot the differences, I'm going to use the same products on each card, and that is going to be the Hero Arts Apple Branch Stamp Set, Catherine Pooler inks in Cotton Candy and Do-Si-Do, and Distress Spritz in Worn Lipstick. Now I've got links to all these products in the video description in case you need that, and yeah, let's get going. Okay, so for the first technique, we are going to use a brayer to create a really simple inked background. I've got a piece of masking tape on my cardstock to mask off the section I want inked, and I've got this rubber brayer, and I'm just running it along my ink pad to pick up the ink. I'm just rolling it onto the cardstock. I'm not worried about getting it blended first. I'm not doing anything fancy or tricky. I'm just applying color to my cardstock with that brayer. It's very similar to ink blending, but instead of a really good blend of 2 colors, you get more of an overlap, and you can have some really fun kind of abstract looking shapes in there just by how your brayer moves. In between colors, you want to wipe it off so you don't contaminate your ink pads when you're going from darker to light, which I probably could have gone the other way and done my lighter color first and then not worried about contamination at all, but I wasn't thinking. And you're watching this in real time, so you can see how quick and easy it was to apply color, and I just went until I felt like I had enough coverage, and then I was done. So super easy peasy. This is a technique for when you have very few minutes to be in your craft room, but you want something that is going to have a big pop of color. Okay, so this background could easily be finished right here, but I just can't resist a little bit of shimmer. So I'm spraying on some Distress Spritz in Worn Lipstick, and I'm just using my hand to cover the part I don't want any on. And then I'm being very, very careful taking off my masking tape today because I've just been having a bad tape day. Does that ever happen to you guys? I'm really careful to put it on my clothes first before I put it down or whatever, make sure it's not that sticky. I have a couple brands I love that are so good, but for some reason today it's just tearing everything. So I'm being really careful taking off that tape, and then I'm going to set this aside to dry, and then I'll stamp the apple branch on it when it's dry. Okay, so for our next method, we're going to do a little bit of ink smooshing, and I'm going to use an acrylic block for this. Now, I'm so bad at eyeballing things to be straight that I thought if I positioned my block on here first and made some marks with some white pencil, that would help me. Now, I'm using white because you won't be able to see it later. Sometimes if you use regular pencil, it gets trapped in the ink pigment and you can't really erase it as well as you want to later. And I know you can't see it on camera, but I can see the corners that I've made with the white pencil. So that will help me a little bit with the spacing. And then I'm just applying inks to my acrylic block. So this is a gridded block. I'm using the smooth side, but you can absolutely use the gridded side, and that's actually really cool effects if you do that. And then I started with my lightest color, and I'm putting my darkest color on. Now I can spritz this block with water, but I'm going to spritz it with a little bit of water and a little bit of Distress Spritz because I just can't resist the shimmer. It's so pretty, you guys. I wish I could capture it better on camera. The Distress Spritz is just awesome. After I've got a little bit of spritz and water on this block, I'm going to pick it up and carefully put it down using the guides I drew with the white pencil. Okay, and you can see I've got a clipboard underneath this because I want to pick it up and set it aside somewhere else to dry a little bit before picking up that block. I want the ink to really settle in that pattern that I've made. Okay, now last card. This is our last technique. This is just ink blending. My favorite tried and true ink blending in a small section. Obviously, you can see I've been having such a rough time with my tape today on my arm again. And because I'm lazy and I don't like to measure, I'm going to use a couple pieces of tape, and that will figure out my spacing for this little section that I'm going to ink blend. So I put the first tape down, then I'm going to put another tape right next to it and then peel off the first one, and that will give me my section that I want to ink blend. This is my hack for not measuring, and I love how it turns out, and I have different widths of low-tech tape. For that reason, you can create such fun chunks of color blocking without having to measure anything, and I gotta love it. After I pulled off that first piece of tape, you can see I'm just ink blending. I've sped this up because, it's not that interesting to watch me ink blend, I suppose, but I love it and I do it all the time. When it's done, I'm adding Distress Spritz again because I just love it. And then I'm take the tape off, guys, and look, You watched me put that on. You know I put that on my arm 2 times even, and it's still ripped. Seriously. So I'm going to show you a little trick to fix that spot because I'm not starting over. I'm going to put a different kind of tape down and add a little bit more ink, but it's really hard to ink blend on torn paper in my experience. So that isn't exactly going to give me the look I want. So then I'm going to grab a colored pencil that just happens to really match, and I'm going to use that to just color in on the line and make it a little more even. And later when we finish this card, you're not even going to notice that little tiny imperfection. We've covered it up enough that nobody will know, except for we'll know because we watched it. Okay, here are the backgrounds all dry. I'm going to take off this block. Ready? Yay! I love how that turned out. Now, if you'd moved the block sooner when the ink was wet, you'd get different movement. It would have moved ink more around. So that can be really fun too. Now I'm going to load them all up in my MISTI, and I'm going to stamp the gorgeous Hero Arts apple branch on top. I love this stamp set so much. I have actually colored it. I will see if I can put a link in the video description to a short video of that. I posted it as a reel on Instagram, but I'll repost it here so you can see because it's really, really fun to color too. And in an effort to make it easier to compare these, and not just because I'm a lazy crafter, which I am, I'm just leaving the apple branch in my MISTI. I'm not moving it around. So it's going to be in the same spot on all 3 card backgrounds that we've made. And I actually love that because not only is this a fun way to show you guys how these different techniques look, but I could make this into a really cute little set of cards and like bring it as a hostess gift or something like that. So I love doing that. Now, even though the apple branch is in the same place on all 3 panels, I am going to change up the sentiments just because the way the backgrounds look, I have like different spaces, I think. So I thought I would just show you on one card how I'm going to test it. So I've got the block card in there, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment vertically. But before I commit and stamp it on that background that I worked very hard on, I'm going to put a piece of acetate over my card panel, stamp onto the acetate so I can kind of check. And it was a little bit hard to stamp on the acetate at this point. I think I needed to give it a good cleaning, but that way I can check and see like, well, does it fit? Does it look good? Is it straight? And all of those things before I commit to stamping on my actual project. Then of course, when I'm happy with it, I just wipe off the acetate, put it behind in my MISTI, then ink up the stamp and stamp again onto the final project. Okay, now let's do a quick walkthrough of all of our cards. This was the Brayer card. I think it's my favorite. I just love the way the Brayer makes those colors overlap, and it's so fun and easy. This is the acrylic block ink smooshing card. It's a little less vibrant than the other 2, but it's just dreamy and fun. I really love how it turns out. And here is the ink blended one, which is probably the one I would make most often because it doesn't require me finding any of those other tools in my craft room. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you are feeling inspired to create today, and I hope you have a wonderful time doing it. Happy crafting!